Hey all, Mac here. It's been a bit. I've got my hands on some free time after my first semester, and I've been playing a decent bit of PoE too. I think the game's been a lot of fun, and albeit there are some glaring issues with the game, I do think that it's overall a really nice change of pace from PoE 1. But you're here for this build, and this is more of an update before I finalize the build with a little bit more currency, a little bit more time, and levels. But this is what I have running now, and I will also go over some of my strategies I've been using to just make currency and basically how I'm playing the game. You can see right now, like, I haven't really gotten into the endgame just because I've been a little bit more tight on time. The game kind of came out during finals, so I had to wait a little bit to really like play more. But nevertheless, this is a Hexblast crit Blood Mage, and one thing with Blood Mage, first off, is that this ascendancy, I think many streamers have already made it very clear, it is pretty counterintuitive by design, and I don't really like the fact that you can't spec two of its most like pivotal nodes. So Crimson Power and Sunder the Flesh are kind of two really necessary ascendancies, I think, for this, and even the Leech being tied down to like its own little section is unfortunate. On top of that, having just Progenesis alone, I feel like it's not really a strong enough defensive layer for this build, unless you get some insane gear or some insane stacking ES. But nevertheless, yeah. So this build, the actual leveling for this build, I actually started Blood Mage and played the Cast on Freeze, and when that got nerfed, I needed to pivot, and I decided just to stick it out with Hexblast, and it's been a lot of fun. Getting a lot of crit is the most important thing on Blood Mage, as that's what allows you to generate your Blood Orbs. So building crit on the tree as well as chaos damage is a very good option. Because you're also topsided with tree, most of your defensives are going to come from Energy Shield, and so that's what we're also going to be stacking. You can see I have 3.2k, and with Grim Harvest I can get up to 6k. So really nothing too special about the pathing. You want to kind of take these nodes over here. This is chaos damage, curse effect, more chaos damage over here. You're basically taking all the proximal crit nodes, and mostly crit for spells. Over here there's some like increased DS that you can take, Arcane Surge and mana regen, and obviously with every build, mana is kind of an issue. So there is one solution, which is taking this node. Ether Flow allows you to regen a lot faster. It gives you 50% regen while you're moving. And most of the time you're going to be moving with this build. It's a literal one button build, 2 buttons if you're, doing single target. But yeah, the kind of upside as well with this pathing is that you do get a lot of attribute nodes, which this build is starving for. You need a lot of intelligence, which is why I also have this spec. On top of that, you also get a lot of jewel nodes, so you have some flexibility in getting more damage there. And I think one of the best places to get crit damage and crit chance is from jewels. But you can also opt for like chaos damage if that's a little out of your budget. Finally, some nodes over here. Wither effect is always strong with chaos builds, and again, just more crit. You're really stacking a lot of crit here. I would recommend taking some ES nodes, and I'll talk about why actually right now. So this is the tree for the most part. I wouldn't really take anything beyond Sunder and Gore Spike. Still haven't done my 4th Ascendancy, but I'm probably just going to end up going Progenesis. But yeah, so itemization wise, this build is pretty reliant on a couple items. I'm playing a Magic Find setup actually, and that means I'm stacking a lot of rarity on my gear, which also means I'm suffix starved. As a result, I have 0 chaos res, and I'm seeing that this is a very major problem. There's used to be some things in PoE 1 that you could just get by with no chaos res. You can do the majority of your mapping without it. You'll probably die once in a while to just like degens and big chaos hits, but there weren't that many. In this game, there's probably like a chaos damage, dot, ground effect, or just hit every single map. So you kind of have to be cautious and really, like watch out for those. I have died more often than not to chaos damage, so your other alternative is just to drop Magic Find and to play chaos res on your gear instead, which honestly should be similar priced, if not slightly more expensive than finding rarity on that gear. But nevertheless, I like rarity. I'm even running a Golden Charm, which evidently just adds 20% more rarity. So yeah. Getting res capped is also kind of a pain with rarity, because gear is pretty expensive when you tack on that one stat, but I think it's worth it. So, first off, the weapon, you want to get +4, if even just +3 to all chaos spells. You can also do all spells if that's somehow cheaper. But the other primary stat that you need is increased crit chance for spells. There's just not a lot of good ways to scale crit outside of the tree. The gems for crit are absolutely worthless. So I would highly recommend that you just find a wand. If you need to do +3 instead of 4, that's totally fine. It actually reduces the cost of Hexblast. So if you have enough cast speed, it actually is going to make up in damage. Besides that, just chaos damage, gain as extra, and spell damage are all good options for prefixes. Getting more mana is always nice. Increases your pool of casting. You can kind of spam a couple more, burst a couple more on bosses before you run out of mana and have to start regenning. And the game mana per enemy killed is really nice just for clearing. Never really have mana problems during mappings, more so just during bossing. One key item that I need to make very, very clear, Azuri's Disdain is incredible as a defensive layer. So without this item, I'm pretty sure, yeah, my ES goes down to 1.2k. With this item, it goes up to 3k. Now you're wondering, okay, 30% maximum life as extra maximum energy shield. The wording here, extra, is a little deceptive. Back in PoE 1, it used to not apply. It used to apply after all the scaling by increased ES, like your tree nodes. Now, the gain as extra is applied before your increased and percentage scaling, meaning that I'm getting 30% max life as ES plus the increased nodes on the tree. And that is an incredible defensive layer. This is especially good when paired with Grim Feast. So yeah, wouldn't recommend any other helmet. It also has rarity on it. And, it's a pretty cheap item if you don't go for 2 sockets. You want a high crit chance for spells focus. You can get spell damage, more ES on it, kind of whatever you desire, fill reses. For an amulet, I looked for rarity and crit, and then just filled attributes and spirit. You need a lot of spirit for my setup, roughly 253. But you can also get quality on your blasphemy support, which will reduce the reservation by 10%. I corrupted mine, and so I couldn't actually put quality on it. I'll have to fix that later. The body armor, same thing, just a lot of life res and spirit on it. I have 82 spirit coming from this body armor, so yeah, it's a lot. I got a Venturous Gamble that's pretty good. It's low life, but still, just again, need more spirit and some rarity. This is again more rarity, life, nothing too special. For the boots, you can run 10% move speed unique, and those boots, I actually forget the name, but what they do is they cast Decompose whenever you take a step, and it kind of leaves a gas trail behind you. If you play League of Legends, it's like Singed. And it's, honestly, from what I've seen, the scaling is pretty ridiculous. So that is an option if you're willing to move a little bit slower. It might help you with your clear, especially if you're having damage issues, which I don't think this build technically has. It feels really, really well scaled as long as you build enough crit. More crit damage bonus on the gloves, rarity, life, cold res. You're going to opt out of the crit damage bonus as that's really expensive, and just a decent belt. Again, you're trying to fill reses everywhere you can while taking the necessary items. The focus is, I'd say, mandatory. Ideally, you get more ES on this, but spell damage is fine too. So, taking a peek at the gem setup, I'm running... I would ignore this. Don't worry about Chaos Bowl. I don't really like it. Life Remnants, I run Clarity Cannibalism. Cannibalism is insane. I would not play Vitality over this. For Hexblast, I'm running Magnified Effect. Consider casting, Unleash, and Inspiration, with Chaos Mastery as just a little plus one at the end of it all. There's not really that many good support gems for Hexblast, so this is kind of the only other option I had. Definitely do not need a 5th socket in it. Don't get this over some other gear upgrades. This is a little min-maxy, but I was getting it anyways. Actually, for bossing, you want to swap out Magnified Effect for Concentrated Effect, and this will just literally give you 40% more damage, which is really powerful for single target. Your contagion setup mainly is to freeze enemies, so chaotic freeze is necessary here. Persistence is nice just to have more duration, so you don't have to like recast it constantly. And arcane tempo again just for more cast speed. You can also play arcane tempo at Hexblast, but I kind of don't need the cast speed here, and I feel fine as is. So you know, it's like a close to 1 second cast time, but it doesn't actually feel that slow, and the damage comes out pretty fast. Dark Effigy, playing acceleration and venom and withering touch, just to let it shoot out a lot of projectiles really fast. Your 3 auras that you're running are going to be Grim Feast, Withering Presence, and Blasphemy. With Blasphemy, I'm taking Despair and Temp Chains. Quality on these gems are going to increase the effect on Temp Chains, and then the radius on Despair, which is going to be really nice. You're going to be mainly relying on Temp Chains as a defensive layer, outside of your normal, you know, like defensive layers of ES. And other than that, you can take Ritualistic Curse, and if you don't have the Spirit, you don't have to run Heightened Curse, but this is just nice because it gives us more damage from Despair and more defensive from Temp Chains. Grim Feast is insane. I wouldn't play anything else, honestly. I think that it's almost a necessary component. This gem is really crazy. You get a lot of ES. I overcapped to like a little over 6k ES while mapping, which is just really nice for taking some hits. I've survived like volatiles and like after death effects using this. So again, the build relies mostly on you just going around right-clicking Hexblast to detonate the curses from Blasphemy, and I can actually detonate curses pretty much like at the edge of my screen, so its clear is really nice in that sense. But at the same time, when you're going up against a rare, you're going to want to be casting your Contagion just so you can freeze them and kind of get rid of any like dangerous things that they could cast. I think the big thing with this build is that it excels in rare killing. So you can do bosses. Some bosses are really rough. The actual like tier 15 map boss is really tough. I tend to just run out of health flasks and mana flasks, and that's probably just poor management. Haven't attempted him again, but I think I can with magnified effect now. Or, sorry, with concentrated effect. And, yeah. I want to say that the best strategy, if you are playing Magic Find, is just to amp up the rares. And I'll actually show you my Atlas tree, if I can find it. So, I'm building mostly into rares and Waystone sustain. I'm playing Deadly Evolution just to give rares more modifiers, more monster packs, more rare modifiers. Even the duplicated rare, this seems kind of low value, but I mean, 1 extra rare ends up dropping like 1 or 2 exalts. It's always worth it. And then just more monster packs. I'll probably end up getting monster pack size as my next upgrade after I complete the T14s. And yeah, overall, been having a lot of fun with this build. It's kind of still in the progression stage. I still need to get some upgrades and probably transition out of Magic Find, which once I feel comfortable with the amount of currency I have. But yeah, until next time, ciao.